I have to apologize for it taking a while to get to this review, but I will just say this. Like the movie, it just took me a really long time to get there. Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to an all-new Talkin Movies. As always, I am your host, the real Geno Reynolds, and today we're going to be talking about Brad Pitt's new space journey movie, Ad Astra. I will warn you, near the end of this review, I am going to talk about the ending because the ending was the biggest problem I had with it. But I'll definitely just talk about the movie a little bit before then, and I will give you plenty of warning when I'm going to start talking about spoilers. What this movie is about is Brad Pitt's character's dad left the family to go to space when Brad Pitt's character Roy McBride was a lot younger. And he broke a lot of records when it came to space travel, and the last transmission they got from him, he was around Neptune. Years later, many years later, Roy McBride has been inspired by his father, the things that his father had accomplished, to get into space travel. And it ends up, he's on a mission, and all of a sudden this thing called the surge happens, and there's power outages and explosions and all sorts of weird stuff happens. And you've seen it in the trailer. This is where Brad Pitt goes flying off a space station into the atmosphere. And it turns out he's called into the government calls him in, and they tell him that this surge is supposedly coming from around Neptune, and they believe that his father might still be alive, so they want to send him to Mars to send a communication to Neptune to try to if his father's alive, they want to find that out. They want to find out what's going on and if they can stop it. Okay, this is one of those movies where I think the trailer did the movie a little disservice. The trailer itself makes looks like this movie's going to be like this action-packed space adventure. And boy, it is not. I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but I feel the trailer was a kind of misleading. And they show like the rovers on the moon and people are shooting each other and stuff like that. That stuff does happen, but it's a very minimal part of the movie. So yeah, the trailer was a bit misleading. So don't go in this expecting like a cross between, the real world and Star Wars. Then again, it kind of is in a way, but it's not like this big action-packed space adventure. This movie is probably one of the slowest burning movies I've seen in a while now. Because from start to end, you feel every second of this journey. I would say almost to the point where it feels too long. If you're following and enjoying what's going on in this movie, you'll probably like the movie a lot better. Because if you're not enjoying it, this movie would be a slog for you. And that is really what this movie's about. It's about Brad Pitt's character's journey to try to see if his father's alive and then communicate with him, all the while trying to figure out what the government is trying to keep from him, because of course it's the government and their secrets. So yeah, definitely if you go see it, you're gonna get, like I said, I don't remember the last time I sat through something that had this slow of a burn up until, from start to end. A lot of the movie is narrated by Brad Pitt. We kind of get his inner thoughts, and he talks about growing up with his father and why he does what he does, and how he ruined relationships and how he would rather be alone and all this other stuff. So he narrates pretty much the whole film. I think it really works because if they went with just silence, I think that would have made the movie feel a little longer, because you would have to you probably could interpret what his character was feeling, but I think all that silence in a movie this slow, that has this slow burn of a pace, I think it would have been brought down a few pegs if there wasn't the narration. So the narration, I thought, was a really good idea to kind of keep everything going. As you go along in this story, you start to learn more and more about his father's mission. You start to learn more about his father because, of course, the government isn't telling you everything, or isn't telling Brad Pitt's character everything, and also not telling you. And as they go, Brad Pitt starts to piece together what's going on, and by the time you get to near the conclusion of the movie, he kind of has an idea what's happening, and he knows what he has to do to try to stop this surge stuff from happening. So one thing I really like about this movie is a lot of the ideas it has. All the movie says, it doesn't put a specific year on it. It just says, like, in the near future. And what we see is that while, everyone, we have the same stuff going on Earth, where, there's limited resources and all this stuff. Once we start going to other places like the moon and other planets, you have, they're talking about, like, the moon is now being fought over. You have moon pirates that will try to, jack your rover and things like that. And that's what you see in the trailer, where they're kind of shooting at each other. It seems like it's like stuff that actually could happen in the next, 10, 20 years maybe. Maybe not go as far as Neptune, but when it comes to, the moon has been colonized and people are fighting over it and they're taking resources from it, because that's what humans do. It seems somewhat plausible. Like, there is, I wouldn't call them laser guns, but there are kind of like ray guns in this that are used in space, and they come into play 2 or 3 times in the movie, the pirate scene being one of them. So there's just advances, little advances here and there, and of course the biggest advance is we have spaceships that can go, all the way to Neptune. That being said, the trip to Neptune is a big deal because Tommy Lee Jones's character is him and his crew are the only ones that have done it. He was the first past, like, most of the planets on the edge of the solar system, and no one has really gone much farther since. So I like a lot of the ideas of the movie. I think they could have fleshed out some of them a little more, just to kind of fill in some of the slow burn a little bit. But overall, you're still invested in Brad Pitt's character's story and what he's going to find. So you're always wanting to know what's going to happen. So, but I just would have liked a little bit more from this not too far into the future type of world. I just wanted to see more of it, I guess. It was just kind of a curiosity. It's like, well, they've got this. What else do they have? I'm about to get into spoilers. Again, just to reiterate, for those that don't want to know about spoilers, this movie isn't going to be for everyone. A lot of people might hate the pace. It's extremely slow. I thought it was an interesting movie. I liked the way it looked. I liked the narration. I like this world or this, I guess I should say, this universe they have created here, and I just wanted more of it. But the ending is the thing that, I wouldn't say it ruins the movie, but it does knock it down a bit for me. And I'm about to get into talking about that, but I can't recommend this to everybody. It's not going to be one of my favorites of the year, but I enjoyed the film for what it is, even though the ending I didn't like. So here we go, spoiler territory. So Tommy Lee Jones's character's mission is they want to find intelligent life out there. Are we alone in this solar system? Are we alone in the galaxy? That's his mission. And it comes to find out that his character and his crew started to go a little space crazy, because I mean, all the, you know, they're the only people they've been around for years and years and years. It's like decades that they're gone. And it comes to find out, even though Tommy Lee Jones's character, who is alive, he tells his son that that him and his crew got into a fight and the crew died. Tommy Lee Jones is the only one left on Neptune, or around Neptune. And that's what he tells his son. Whether or not he's telling the truth, I think he is, because if anything, it seems like he's just a really honest guy. But he never wanted to give up trying to find intelligent life. He was going to die out there. Find it or die. And the crew, after not finding it for years and years and years, they wanted to go home. And he was like, he's like, you're not going home. And they got in a fight, and the crew ended up being killed. And Brad Pitt's character goes to him. First of all, and I have to step back a bit, because Brad Pitt's character, while somewhat justified in some of his actions, like wanting to know what's really going on. See, when he's on Mars trying to communicate with his dad, they don't tell him, or they always say, well, we'll try tomorrow. And because they're saying they're not getting through to him. But then all of a sudden, instead of reading the script, Brad Pitt's character just kind of says, Dad, I want to see you, and says a few things like that. And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, well, we're going to send you back to Earth. This isn't working. And he's like, he answered, didn't he? And they won't tell him. And of course, it's a need to know kind of thing. And so Brad Pitt's character ends up escaping this place and getting on the rocket that is going to go destroy Tommy Lee Jones' space station to stop the surge. They're going to nuke it. And he sneaks on to the rocket right before it goes off, and the three crew members who are on the ship, who are, by the way, the ones that got him to Mars, they are they say, what do we do? He's getting on the ship, and Brad Pitt's character's like, I'm not a threat, right? And anyway, they pull guns on him. And while Brad Pitt doesn't straight up murder these people, these three other astronauts end up dying. Because Brad Pitt snuck onto the ship, these three astronauts end up dying. And then Brad Pitt goes to carry out their mission anyway, yet he adds the stipulation he's going to try to save his dad. If his dad's still out there, because at the time he doesn't know. And so just remember that Brad Pitt's actions led to the death of three astronauts. So that's an important reason why the ending didn't kind of work for me. When he gets to Neptune, he ends up, or on the way to Neptune, he starts dealing with hallucinations and stuff. They don't really show anything, but he says, like, the loneliness and being by himself, and the weightlessness is starting to mess with him. Valid point. That being said, remember that point. At this long travel, this long bit of travel he did from Mars to Neptune started messing with his mind. Okay, so you got to remember that too. So after he deals with his dad, he talks his dad. He's like, look, you tried, and there's nothing out here, but at least look what you did. You got out here, and he convinces his dad to come with him. His dad doesn't even try to stop him from nuking the place. But right before they're going to get ready to go to Brad Pitt's ship, his dad is basically just gives up, and he wants to commit suicide in space. He just wants to float off into space. And he does. So all the stuff that has happened, and especially this, leads Brad Pitt's character into all of a sudden going, I don't want to be alone in this universe. He's like, I thought I wanted to be alone, but all this travel and all this loneliness I've experienced, and seeing my dad and seeing how he turned out. And his dad pretty much said, I didn't want anything to do with you and your mother, that I loved space more, This leads him to go, I want to be happy and not be alone. So he gets on the ship. He recovers his dad's studies, his dad's data, and takes it all with him. And he uses the explosion to be able to give him enough force to get back to Earth, all the way to Earth. But here's the thing. All the stuff he dealt with going there, and the hallucinations and weightlessness, all that stuff, they mentioned nothing of it on his trip back to Earth. Granted, they probably just wanted to get him back to Earth. I get it. So I understand why they didn't do that, because it just would have been more of the same. But my biggest issue is when he gets back to Earth. He is not punished one bit for the stuff he did. Now, that I can kind of understand, because they talk about in the movie how the space program, the government want to, because they were saying his father murdered these people and all this, and they just wanting to cover that up and call him a hero, and it was all cover-ups. I understand that. So if they covered it up, I could see that being a thing. But here's the thing that really bothered me, is that Brad Pitt's character at the end really doesn't seem like he's showing any remorse for his actions. His actions led to the deaths of some people, and they really just all of a sudden show him he's like, I'm happy, and it looks like he's going to get back together with his ex-wife or girlfriend or whatever she was. And that bothered me, because they didn't deal with how this trip home messed with his mind. I would have been more accepting if he ended up, if they showed him being arrested, or they showed him not being able to deal with what happened to him, and it messed with his mind, and he's back on Earth, but he doesn't know how to, be on Earth again, even though he thought he did. I think this movie almost deserved the movie had almost too much of a happy Hollywood ending, and this movie is a downer a lot of the way through, that it almost deserved a downer type ending. I think that's what bothered me, is that it was too happy. And I get it. I know you don't want a depressing movie like this to end on a down note, but this story earned a down note. He did bad things, but all of a sudden, but it doesn't show him having to deal with that. Again, his actions led to death, and there's no punishment, and his character shows no remorse. So that's what bothered me about the ending. Again, it doesn't ruin the movie for me, but the ending should have been a little bit more of a downer. That's just the way I think about it. And that's going to be all I have to say about this movie. And that's going to be all for this edition of Talkin Movies. If you like what you've heard here, please subscribe to the Real Geno YouTube channel, like this video, and you have anything to say about Ad Astra, please feel free to leave a comment in the section below. Till next time, I am your host, the Real Geno, Geno Reynolds. To the stars.